In the news now, with these parties that the government, the people in charge were breaking the rules, having these parties in their lovely gardens. I think I've been naive all my life. It's not till now I just go, why do we trust them? Of course we shouldn't trust the people in charge. That's how they're in charge. They shouldn't be trusted.
Keir Starmer is facing a wave of criticism as Ricky Gervais, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, three very different figures, come together to point out the fatal flaws in his leadership. As all three agree that Starmer is failing the UK, people cannot help but ask, what is really going on? While hot-button issues such as free speech, immigration and leadership become urgent, Starmer has chosen to stay out of the picture, leaving behind a growing public frustration.
By the way, I have to beat up on the UK just one additional thing. I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over. But to my Tory friends, I have to say, you guys have got to get a handle on this, but neither here nor there.
Freedom of speech, one of the core values of democracy, is being eroded under Starmer. J.D. Vance has not hesitated to condemn the laws he has supported that directly restrict people's right to speak. In particular, the case of Adam Smith Connor, who was fined for silently praying near a clinic, has become a symbol of the alarming decline of freedom of expression in the UK. Vance stressed that when silent prayer is also considered a violation, it is no longer a sign of a free society, but a manifestation of widespread censorship. Amid the public uproar, Starmer has chosen to remain silent. Not an apology, not an explanation. That silence has not only angered people, but also raised a painful question. If a Prime Minister does not stand up for the most basic freedoms, who is he serving?
People try and give ideas rights.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not allowed to offend their, they jump in the way of the bullet and say, why are you shooting at me?
Yeah.
Right? If someone insults maths, I don't go, how dare you insult maths?
Yeah.
Insult it all you like.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
If you're so fragile that you think that a joke about someone can destroy it, well, you need something else then. It's nonsense. And now people saying, people mistake sometimes demanding equality, right, by not being part of humour.
Yeah.
It's actually demanding privilege.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. But I agree. It's someone says they're offended. I want people to stop saying that joke's offensive.
Yeah.
I want them to start saying I found it offensive, because you've got to own the emotion, because that's all it is. Arrogant are you to think that you deserve to go through life with no one ever saying anything that you don't agree with or like. You don't have to pave the jungle.
Yeah.
You can just grow a pair and have a laugh about it. Yeah, but you shouldn't hurt people's feelings. Well, you can if their feelings are wrong.
Yeah.
If you don't like the facts, don't change the facts, change the feelings.
Yes.
I want people to stop saying that joke's offensive.
Yeah.
I want them to start saying I found it offensive, because you've got to own the emotion, because that's all it is. You're just telling me how you feel about it. There's nothing intrinsically offensive about this joke. It's no different to saying I've got a pain in my leg. Right, I believe you, but there's no...
Ricky Gervais, known for his outspokenness and lack of fear of controversy, also weighed in. Why should we be afraid of offending? That's the price of freedom, he quipped. Gervais warned that when governments interfere with what people are allowed to say for fear of offending someone, it's a dangerous sign. In that context, Starmer, who has pledged to protect basic freedoms, has continued to remain silent. That leaves many wondering, is this indifference, complicity, or simply a lack of courage? If the issue of free speech has raised doubts, Starmer's leadership style has further frayed public patience. In recent interviews, he has repeatedly dodged key questions. When asked about controversial cabinet appointments, Starmer has given roundabout answers that have left many feeling he is underestimating the intelligence of voters. One analyst did not hesitate to comment, "Starmer is good at talking without saying anything." That indecision not only caused domestic frustration, but also cooled Britain's international relations.
It's true in Europe. They're losing their wonderful right of freedom of speech. I see it.
Vice President Vance's speech to the conference has ruffled quite a few feathers in Europe.
What did he say to ruffle them? I don't know.
He was talking about the freedom of speech and migration in Europe. Do you believe that European leaders have a fundamentally different view of the world than this administration's?
Well, I heard his speech, and I tell you, you're talking about JD's speech, right?
Yes, sir.
I heard his speech, and he talked about freedom of speech, and I think
Donald Trump has not missed an opportunity to highlight that weakness. At a recent rally, he bluntly said, "While the US has acted to support Ukraine, the UK under Starmer has stood on the sidelines. They have done nothing." Criticism from an important ally like the US is not something to be taken lightly. When UK-US relations become tense, who is suffering the consequences? It is the British people who are witnessing their country becoming increasingly isolated on the international stage. Not stopping there, the immigration crisis is becoming the last straw for voters' patience. JD Vance pointed out a startling figure: 728,000 net immigrants in the past year. Public services are overwhelmed, from hospitals to schools, but Starmer still seems to have no concrete plan. Meanwhile, Trump has not hesitated to call this a national security crisis. The question is, why are people's legitimate concerns being ignored? An angry Kent resident shared, "We don't discriminate against anyone. But when my child has no place to study, when the hospital is overwhelmed, we have the right to demand answers. And certainly not from a evasive Prime Minister like Mr. Starmer." Witnessing the wave of anger, it is puzzling that the country's leaders have chosen to stay silent. A political commentator commented, "Starmer is not ignorant, he just doesn't dare." He doesn't dare to offend his colleagues, he doesn't dare to confront the truth, and he doesn't dare to put the national interest above his prime ministership. Meanwhile, neighbouring countries are taking action to protect their borders, while Britain remains trapped in empty promises. Looking back, a grim picture emerges. Freedoms are stifled, leaders are evasive, and the country is increasingly pushed into a dead end. Ricky Gervais, JD Vance and Donald Trump, who rarely agree, are saying the same thing. Keir Starmer is failing on every front. When people are left wondering whether their Prime Minister truly represents them, it's not just a matter of politics, it's a matter of trust. What do you think? Is it time for Britain to have a leader who can act, or will we continue to accept silence? Leave your comments, like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss the next big news.